March 10th, 2026. Well, President Trump has given us the word that the war is going pretty well, and I believe that their missile stocks are down to 10% of the pre-war numbers, and the drones are down to 25% or something like that. And I guess that's based on the rate of fire, I guess. I don't know if we actually know exactly how many are underground or hidden somewhere. But the point is that from a military point of view, um, it looks like the war is going pretty good up till now. And I thought it would because of the incredible capabilities that the U.S. and Israel together bring to bear on the subject with the intelligence assets and the firepower and the weaponry and the skill of the service people involved. And, um, but now we may have a problem, I think, a little bit. Now, if we go back to the Iraq War, one of the biggest things our political opponents have to do about that famous thing where with the mission accomplished sign, right? And actually, at that point in time, the mission was accomplished. But where things went wrong was after that. What happened after that? It wasn't at that point they were doing great. What went wrong? They brought in a guy named Bremer. They put him in charge of things. And he decided that anybody who'd been in the Iraqi regime before had to go. And they decided to simply tell the whole Iraqi army to go home and without any pay. And so what happened there? Why did it go wrong? Well, in that particular case, what happened was all these people went home and they had their rifle with them, their RPG with them. They knew where explosives were buried. And eventually people that were involved in the terrorist movements of various sort started paying these people to go back and to engage in terroristic activities. And they had plenty of equipment to do it with. And of course, my opinion has always been what we should have done is quite the opposite. Tell them to report back to their bases and offer them, so many dollars for each AK they turned in, so much for every 100 rounds of ammunition, so much for every RPG or rocket for it, so much for the for each kilo of explosives, something like that. And issue them a new issue of shoes. I heard their boots were pretty well worn out, and and feed them some decent meals. And all of a sudden, you'd have the most dangerous people left in the country would be somewhat contained, and we'd have been on our way to controlling the thing. And then make a deal with the more acceptable people that had been in the regime to take it over, hunt down Saddam Hussein, and we would have really had a successful outcome instead of years and years of additional conflict, and leading to the somewhat ambiguous outcome we have today. So where does that come from here? Well, what we do next is going to be a problem because we're talking in terms of we have to pick the new leader of Iran, unconditional surrender. I just don't think that's what's going to work too good. And here's what I'm somewhat afraid of is yes, they will defy us, and yes, we will carry out the threats that Trump made, which means we'll bomb them back to being a post-industrial society. I think that's very possible. Knock out all their electric power. Their hospitals will not be able to treat people anymore. The lights will be out. People will start dying, and the regime will just be madder and madder, and it won't fall. It'll just suffer, and it will be a breeding ground for a future wave of terrorists. Essentially, sort of like a Afghanistan on steroids, a lot bigger, a lot more populous, but that's what I'm worried about here at this point. And I think this is where the breaking point comes. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, or you can also follow me on Rumble. So I'm generally supportive, but I think this is what I've always feared about this is how do you end this thing successfully? I mean, it's one thing to start it. It's another thing to really bring it to a successful conclusion. So that's kind of the way I see it at the moment. And the situation hasn't helped a whole lot that the son of the previous Ayatollah, supreme leader, is now the new one, even though his whole family has been killed in the bombing. So we're not dealing with a completely suitable person for our purposes. Add to the fact, of course, that this one apparently maybe will be smarter and not be at the surface level in obvious places. Maybe, after a while, the survivors probably will be a little smarter than the ones that were deceased. If you remember, like the beginning of the Ukraine war, how the Ukrainians were picking off one Russian general after another for a while, right? Bagged at least, 10 of them or something like that early on. I'm not about in the field. I'm not talking about assassinations back in Moscow. And have you noticed that hasn't been happening a lot lately? See, the dummies have been replaced with smarter, meaner ones. So I don't know how this is going to end up. Maybe they'll be sane and make the deal with us we want, if we can make a reasonable deal. I mean, I'm sure we want them to turn over that 60% enriched uranium-235, right? Will they turn that over or not? Where is it? Or can we arrange a commando raid, sort of like we did in other cases, and go in and snatch it and get it out? Maybe. If things are bombed out enough that there's no real air defense left, and on the other hand, there may be air defense at the level of flying in helicopters. These man portable shoulder launched anti-aircraft missiles. If you get down low enough, they may still have some capabilities. At high altitudes with standoff weapons, even JDAM bombs, we may be bombing from altitudes and speeds that they can't really deal with because they've lost their heavy air defense because we used missile attacks and destroyed the things. So I don't know. I think you'll be in a situation where their actual capability to actually do something overtly conventional military will be reduced. Although we don't know exactly how the situation in the Straits of Hormuz and so forth are going to ultimately play out. I still think there's a possibility that they'll put a bunch of mines out there from small boats. I mean, sure, their major naval combatants have all been destroyed, but I'm not sure they're the main factor. I still haven't heard what happened to the submarines. I assume we got them. If one of those things is loose and we don't see it coming, they fire one of those high-speed Russian torpedoes. They might very well hit a major surface combatant. Probably not sink it, but definitely damage it enough that it's removed from combat for months, and crew members are killed, and way above the 7 so far we've had, lost so far. So anyway, that's kind of the way I'm looking at this situation. On the positive side, if in fact a rational leadership gets in there and wants to make a deal, that's something else. I've heard about the idea we might use ground forces and take Karg Island. But from what I can see, the oil really fundamentally doesn't come from Karg Island. It's just a transshipment point. And I'm pretty sure they can turn the oil off from the shore. So that won't give us much other than maybe prevent them from exporting. Well, that's another issue that will also play into here, depending on how extreme this war goes from here. This thing could turn really nasty next. And, it's a situation that for the moment, if you were dealing with, a more rational government, which was still alive, they might make a deal. But remember, the more rational elements of the government are already dead. What's left now are probably more junior people that are more fanatical. So I don't know I think the Israeli decapitation thing may have went a little too far here, because I understand even Trump was saying that some of the people we thought we might be able to deal with are already dead. Because I don't think Roaring Lion and Epic Fury totally are on the same page. I think the Israeli has its agenda, we have our agenda, and there's a lot of overlap, but I don't think it's 100%. And I think that's an example. They kind of want more revenge against all the people who have done everything over the years, and maybe we do a little bit, but I don't think we're quite as hot under the collar about it. And of course, the Iranian war plan was a complete disaster. I mean, they're now using cluster munitions, and I'm like saying, in a previous video, I'd point out what they should have been prepared to launch massive cluster munitions in the very opening minutes of the war against all the air bases. That's what they should have been doing, not launch them against civilian sites right now. Crazies. Well, that's fortunate. It's too late for them now, so I can say that. Couldn't have said it earlier, right? But there's not much they can do now. I think our defenses are good enough, although defense against the cluster ones may be more difficult if they don't hit them high enough and disrupt them before they all separate. But see, what ended up happening apparently was they kind of had a doomsday switch approach that once the high command and communication was knocked out, they simply had each regional commander go off half-cocked on a preset retaliation against everybody mode and started hitting. I don't think they like the Emirates very much anyhow. I think they consider them to be decadent, and consider their proclivities, and I think that's why they've hit them so much, entertaining a lot of Westerners and stuff, nice hotels. I don't think they like that. So anyhow, I'm wishing Trump the best to pull this thing off, but we do need to come to a war secession within a reasonable amount of time so we can get the oil prices back under control and have some chance of winning the election in the fall. I don't know how much credit for winning this thing will really get politically compared to the blowback, because when you look at a lot of these interviews of people on the street, they're so ignorant they don't even know anything. So I don't know, and those people can vote as much as I can. So so anyhow, that's kind of my view on that. That we'll just have to see where we go in the next week. So far, so good, but now I think we're at the point where we need to make some critical decisions to bring this thing to a successful conclusion, and not perpetuate it into a complete, something that will leave us with a certain kind of reputation throughout the underdeveloped world. Let's put it that way. But anyhow, we'll see. On the other issue I'd raised previously is still true. General MacCasland has not been found as of this recording. I don't know what it'll be in a few days, and I seriously fear that he's been abducted. And I think more than likely he was not abducted by a foreign power wanting to get classified information, but he was taken off the board by the so-called gatekeeper groups within the UAP cover-up. And I'm afraid of that and I think it's a message to all the would-be whistleblowers, to shut up. And I hope they don't shut up, but if they felt intimidated before, I think they're going to feel intimidated now. We can only hope maybe they get enraged and act based on their rage rather than common sense, huh? Because as it is, I mean, I will wait and see what happens with, the administration's so tied up with this war that I don't think this is the biggest thing on their plate at the moment, so to speak. Although on the good side, I understand that the people in Congress that are pushing disclosure have all written a letter to the president over it. So we'll see how that is handled. And so, okay, I'll be putting this on YouTube and Rumble as always, and the address is my social media accounts in the description below. So I'll be wrapping this one up for now, all for this time.